Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back to another live stream / recording of Hearthstone. So we've got 6 days left in the May season. It is Friday, May 26th. Hopefully it being Friday and it being a little bit later, if you can even see the clock. Man, did they not put that in the right text font? Did I ever get that friend request? No, I did not. So one of the viewers in the last stream asked how to friend me, and then they never sent me a friend request, so I'm wondering if that specifically relates to maybe he didn't realize I was on the US servers and I didn't tell him. We have 6 tavern brawls we need to get done. We need to get 5 rogue and warrior games done, 2 of which have to be rogue. And that will work well. So we know what to do to start off here. I have to create a deck. I don't want to really do that. Let's take it down a notch. There, Brawler. Make a deck using only cards from the basic and classic sets, but none of these fancy epics or legendaries are here. So make an incredibly slow, terrible deck. Thanks. Rogue, where are you, Rogue? There you are. I tell you, every time. So, I literally have no legendaries or anything but basic cards. This is gonna be insanely bad. This is gonna be just like everything. Like, there will be no Unguru options. Everything that you might have played at the very beginning. So you're going back to classic things like Stormwind Champion, a card we haven't played in a long time. Maybe Core Hound. Maybe this one. Let's see. This one and this one. Man, some of these cards, like, we haven't done anything with these in so long. Like, here the Frostwolf Warlord ability is actually gonna play and work. That's probably gonna work. This is gonna work. There's gonna be ridiculously small amounts of spells and abilities. Let's make sure we get the owl. Get that guy. If you have 4 more minions take control of one, I'll take that, since that is almost certainly going to happen. Yeah, this is awful. And you couldn't really do a Murloc deck. We could do Mana Wraith. Even slow down gameplay. That's something I certainly played at the beginning. Wisps, things like that. Things that by far had no advantage whatsoever originally. Now all of a sudden they're gonna really matter. Let's see. Well, let's just go with this. Let's just try it. I imagine what's going to happen here is people are going to be frustrated with this Tavern Brawl just to begin, just off the bat. So maybe people will want to quit really quickly. I built a pretty late game deck there, not going for quick victories. We have kind of a weird situation with news. Like, there was a lot of game announcements that I just skipped in total. Just because I was running out of space and didn't really want to talk about games getting announced. Most of them were Japanese games that are the Japanese market anyways. And some of the sites that I watch get the announcement dates just from listings on websites, which means they're not particularly guaranteed to be accurate anyways. Do I want to kill this one? Not yet. So let's just go through the news as kind of quickly as is reasonable. That way when people start jumping on and commenting and stuff like that, we can just have conversations without me feeling the need to start one way. This will be funny. I guess I should have the knife juggler in here. So here's a weird story. I didn't get the full amount of it, but Divinity Original Sin 2 is coming out of early access in September. And apparently the reason why it's coming out of early access is not particularly because it's done and ready to be sold or it's a 1.0 product. Apparently it's coming out of early access simply because the creator wanted to win a bet with a construction company. Like, seriously?
Justice
That's the reason? So, of all the reasons to bring your game out for sale, to win a bet is right up there, if not the worst reason I've ever heard in my life. That's completely awful. That's really, really bad. So ideally, I want to steal this Void Walker.
Engaging TC-130 into dislocator.
Alright.
Justice is mine.
It is very hard.
Pokemon Go cheaters. To move on to the next bit of news as I'm trying to focus and see what I should improve upon on this Tavern Brawl deck, since I've clearly losing here. Let's see. Charge Divine Shield.
Justice is mine.
You can see that they're not really faring much better than I am with these old cards. Let's see. Restore to. Or can I do something? I can do this and this and then kill this and then the turn. Pokemon cheaters, accounts that get flagged or specifically being locked out of getting anything but common cards. So a lot of Pidgeys in particular are showing up in the cheaters. I can almost feel a little sorry for the cheaters on Pokemon Go because there is a lot of ask in that game. A lot of ask because you have to go to specific places over and over again and check out those things non-stop. Let's get rid of these bigger taunt characters for something a little bit more playable. I wonder if I just did type in Murloc. Am I better off playing a Murloc deck? If I did Murlocs, I could do, let's see, 12 Murloc cards instead of a 30 Murloc deck. That's quite a lot of Let's see, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Let's come back here. Find some good cards to play. There we go, and brawl. Yeah, so I can kind of sympathize on why people would want to cheat on Pokemon Go. Because you'd want to play a Pokemon game, like, if I kind of had the idea that I wanted to play it, but I don't go anywhere, I don't walk, and it would very possibly kill me to try to maintain the level of interaction that game wants.
None can escape my fury.
Of course, that really speaks more to me being less than healthy than it does anything. I'm sure little kids that are the target audience of Pokemon Go could handle it. And if they had a school that was a gym, although then that gets into the weird thing is you have 3 different gangs effectively, and kids going to school for Pokemon with their Pokemon Go app enabled phone is going to get them in trouble. So yeah, the whole concept kind of falls apart. It's the same thing with the game that was before that, made by Niantic. What, I can't even remember what that one was called. That
Justice is
just
mine.
requires a lot. That being said, I think Nintendo, at least in Japan, has now put out a solution to people who want to play a Pokemon game like Pokemon Go on their phone, but don't want to walk anywhere or do some of those things, and that is Splash Magikarp, which is a weird one, definitely, but it's certainly there. Loki's online saying hi. Hi, Loki. Making sure I have... I get those notifications out so people can know things are going. Even though I skipped announcing a lot of Japanese games that have been announced, the Tokyo Game Show is scheduled for September 21st through the 24th. So when that happens in a few months, expect to see a lot of Japanese games, but of course E3 will come out well before that happens too. Let's see, we'll play this. And do I have a real reason to play this? Not really, but we'll do it anyways. Disgaea 5 Complete Collection is coming to PC. That'll be interesting to people who are into that game. I do want to get into the Disgaea series, but I feel like it's probably going to be an incredibly long strategy RPG game, kind of like Persona with even less good graphics. But there's certainly something there that interests people. There is a Mario Rabbids battle game that had some images leaked. Basically, I would say might as well just wait for E3 because that's almost certainly going to get announced. Anything that leaks between now and E3, you might as well just not bother paying any attention to it. Let's see. Do I want to kill this 9? Or... I think I kind of have to kill this 9. So...
I wonder.
Who are you?
here's what we do. We do this. Kill this. We do this. And we do that. And then we move forward. Netflix put out a trailer of an animated Castlevania series, and after playing the Castlevania game that I most recently played, which was an attempt at a reboot, it was more 3D instead of 2D. It's probably not even the most recent Castlevania game they've made. But seeing that game in particular and how they were trying very hard to be cinematic and tell a story, and the gameplay elements kind of sucked. I really think they probably have found their niche in making just an anime or an animated series. I guess it's not going to really be an anime. It may be inspired, but I mean, the target market is going to be worldwide, and so by my own personal definition, I wouldn't call that an anime, because I think the target market has to be Japan only to call it an anime, since anime is their word. But yeah, the Netflix series looks good, and you know, I probably will, if I ever find the time, commit to sitting down and watching it.
Is my shield.
And maybe if they get ambitious, they'll make a good Castlevania game after the Netflix thing, or maybe they won't. Maybe this is just what I think Capcom is, again, I think the owner of Castlevania. I could be wrong about that. Let's do this. So we need to save ourselves, so we'll do this, this, and this, and an attack. Call of Duty World War II will have no Axis single-player campaign, which means, of course, you won't be playing as the Nazis or the other people who are on the Axis powers. You will only be playing as allies, which would be the British and the United States at the very end there. It's always important to remember and point out that the United States spent a significant portion of its time out of World War II.
Justice is mine.
Twitch and Bandai have worked together to make a Taken 7 esports league. I'm not even sure Taken 7 is out yet. Is this the new thing, I wonder, where video games are going to create esports leagues before they even have the game released? Is that what's necessary? Very well may be the case. Alright, moving. Let's go ahead and open this pack. So you get a pack of classic cards for playing in the Tavern Brawl with classic cards. No legendaries, but an epic. Probably have all those cards. Like every time I do a Tavern Brawl now, it's just 80 more dust. Well, actually, I didn't have one of those cards. I didn't have the epic. So only 35 more dust, which is a better turn of events. So where is this? Now I have 2 of these. Of course, if I had already had 2 of those, I would have gotten 100 dust. Been up to 400. Back to the Tavern Brawls we go. Let's load up the chat, reload the chat, see what's going on. Just make sure. I'm gonna have to be so paranoid, I think, on this, just to see how everything works. Make sure things work. Japanese internet giant SoftBank has invested $4 billion in stake, a $4 billion stake in NVIDIA, which I guess that's good, but it's also kind of bad, because I know a lot of the Asian countries, and there's been a lot of stories out there that I've just not bothered to mention, are trying to just buy profit. So they've got no company that's particularly stable or profitable that they can fully research and invest in, or that they care to. So instead what they do is they're just saying, well, we know that the video game companies and NVIDIA, which is a video card maker, makes decent amount of profit in the United States, so we don't really have to do as much research there, and so we can take a safe bet and just invest in that company and gain ownership of that company if we were too careful. If you're not careful. And see, this is the dangers. Particularly Chinese companies are trying to buy ownership in all the video game markets, and eventually they're just going to own them, and then the investors who didn't do much research in the first place and just wanted to make profit on the stock now are going to be in charge and having board voting decisions, and what gets made is going to get changed. In fact, what gets made is going to change anyways, because the stockholders and shareholders of any company are just always going to push for more and more profits. Every single quarter has to be a good quarter. Everything has to always work. And that's where you get into the exact situation we are in right now, where IO Interactive is trying to be sold, and Hitman as a game series is probably dead in the water for the next 5 to 10 years, and they've had to lay off people already. All of that comes directly from these giant mega corporations only having a financial duty to make more profit. And that's all they care about. That's all they say they can care about. I don't know if that's actually true, but they say they have this fiduciary duty, but I have the opinion that the idea of a fiduciary duty is a made-up concept. It's kind of like saying I started a religion of my own, and in my religion I have to rob banks. Therefore, I have a religious right to rob banks. It's like, wait a minute, nope. That's a strange example, but it's oddly somewhat accurate.
It is finished.
Let's see.
You win.
Another victory, good. And since Chinese companies in particular are heavily regulated, even Japanese companies have a chance of going down some strange regulations. If NVIDIA was owned by a Japanese company, there might very well be some major weirdness there. If Chinese companies owned all the video game companies, there would certainly be a lot of weirdness there. A lot of video games would change. A lot of video games we have now would stop being on sale. So we got a new guy, Gryzuko, says, haha, nice takeover.
None can escape my fury.
Let's see. It's not that last story wasn't very much of a video game related story either, and this isn't either, but they've updated the NVMe standard, which non-volatile memory extension, I think is what that stands for. Basically what it is it's a potential competing way of having a hard drive. Plugging in hard drives via the SATA 3 ports are approaching a bottleneck that is just too slow. There's just not enough throughput. So NVMe are like video cards that plug into the PCI Express slot and take up a lot more of the pipes that connect to the processor, which is what they're actually called pipes, and allow for faster connections. Now, it's potentially a little bit chicken before the egg because I'm not sure the RAM on an NVMe thing is much faster than what the SATA 3 connection is. They're just very barely approaching the theoretical maximum, and so it's very possible you could just have a SATA 6 standard, which or a SATA 12 standard come out and fix that. But it also kind of is a better long-term concept to get rid of a SATA controller in a PC and have everything on the PCI Express bus, because that's one less chip that you need in between the CPU. Great. Zako, what do you think about refugees? Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble, aren't you? It's a moral question trying to be answered by political people at the end of the day. Whatever refugees you're talking about, there is arguments for most definitely, at the face of it, helping somebody who you see right in front of you needs help. That is the individual moral prerogative. If you see somebody in a car wreck and they're bleeding to death, you almost certainly would determine your moral prerogative is to help that person. But when you take the step away from it and start shrouding it, putting a veil between seeing that actual person and help, there are some other arguments that can be thrown in there, and arguments such as, if you let all the political pressure just continue in the country that's forcing people out of a country, then you're squeezing all of the good people out of big portions of the planet and leaving a Badlands scenario where entire countries, entire continents might just be full of terrible mercenary people, and as that becomes an institutionalized situation, it is only going to get worse. And so you'll have entire areas that force generations to join gangs just to survive, and people are going to get pushed more and more into having to act more desperately and more immorally just to survive in these areas that you've ignored by just only looking at the refugees. This, since I'm in the United States, is an argument that doesn't get made very much about Mexico. Mexico is a country that has a pretty corrupt government. Their police force is pretty corrupt, and there's no way to make an honest living and succeed there. So the fact that all of those things happened, and they're right next to the United States, which is a little less corrupt government and has a lot more opportunity, it's really easy for people to leave their own country and decide to try to make it somewhere else, instead of staying and fixing the problems there. And so, in general, if you can help, we need to fix the multiple problems, not just the one problem. Unless we got into a scenario where the world was just severely underpopulated instead of being severely overpopulated, because that's really the only thing why we might start taking in tons of refugees, is if there's some kind of disease or something happened and we just needed more people. But most countries don't need more people, and when you bring in foreign people in any country, they historically, inherently, have not been treated right. So So politically, to wrap up, you're getting me in trouble here. As an individual, I think most people would agree you have a moral imperative to help people that are in front of you, if at all possible, to do that. If a government is supposed to represent people, then I would say a government has the moral imperative to help people that they can help. If a government is supposed to also deal with things and do things that an individual person would never be capable of doing, such as building highways and infrastructure and such, then they also have a moral imperative in the same way to try and solve bigger problems. And that's something that a lot of government agencies, a lot of government people don't want to really do, is they don't want to try to solve problems, they want to look like they're trying to solve problems. So that answers that. Garzako says really deep. Back to the NVMe update, like these new potential replacements to hard drives, NVMe 1.3, they've added non-UEFI boot partitions, 2 of them, a main and a backup, and a self-test option, which makes the standard a little bit more robust, because now that means if you have an old BIOS instead of the universal EFI BIOSes, then these things will boot, because they wouldn't boot before at all. And now they have a self-test that isn't really much of a self-test as far as the standard, because it can be anything the manufacturer wants to test, but by default it would be a signal you would send to what is effectively your new type of hard drive and say, go ahead and check all the data just to make sure there aren't any bad sectors or anything like that. Not that there really would be bad sectors in a storage device that's all RAM, but maybe not. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.